tremendous amount of dues within not only this community but around this state. And so thank you. Please join me in giving John a hand for all the work that he's done to bring groups like this together in the past. And it is a real honor for me to be here with you. And I apologize, I'm sort of jumping a little bit ahead because I've got to be in Butler County in a bit here, and I'm going to have to take off. But I would love very much to be able to engage each and every one of you, if not individually, hopefully so, over the course of the 9 months. But at the very least, I would encourage you, please, to do the very thing that I'm guessing you've been doing by being here, and that is to be informed. Because I look at this sign up here, everyone should be welcome. Everyone should be welcome. I listened to Mike's comments, where Mike just went. The fact that we have the kind of division that we have in this state is shameful. And it's disappointing to me that we have become so partisan, that we've lost sight of what is really best for Kentucky. And I'm sure if any of you, I was just speaking with Rhonda Massey a moment ago, and I'm sure that you all have received some of the same mailings she has and that I have. I've almost begun to hate myself for all the things I've read about myself. And the reality is, though, that's the low road. The people of Kentucky demand and deserve better than that. They deserve better than that, period. And that's why I'm in this race. I'm married. You know, I'm a business owner. I own several small businesses. Some of them are ones I've started, others where I've invested money in ideas that other friends have. And the creation of the wealth in this country is what we need to encourage. We need more of that. We need less regulation, less taxes. We know something for fact. If we want more of something, subsidize it. If you want less of something, tax it. And we are flipping things upside down. And it's interesting, I mean, there's any number of things I could talk to you about, and time doesn't allow it, and frankly, you'd get tired of listening to me get on any number of soapboxes. But I will say this, I dial it back. People have asked me, what would you do differently? And I'll tell you one thing that I will do differently, and that is I won't just vote to try to get on somebody's list to make it look like I'm a fiscal conservative. I will fight in the way that Thomas and others are to actually stand in the gap and be a person who truly puts his money where his mouth is. And I look at how did we get into the mess that we're in financially in this country. And you roll the clock back to the 90s. We were coming off of an amazing economic expansion. And it bothers me when I hear the term revenue as if the government has actually produced a true good or service. But the reality is our tax money was flowing into Washington. And it was flowing into state capitals. And let me just focus on the federal level for a minute. From 1994 to 1998, as that money was flowing in, we were increasing the federal budget 3.1%. 3.1% on average during those 4 years that we were increasing the size of the federal budget. We balanced the budget at the federal level in 1998 for the first time since 1969. But instead of recognizing what a gift that was, that we had the ability to level the playing field financially and to start being smart with the way in which we managed those resources that were coming from the taxpayer, we started spending like drunken sailors, and it was bipartisan, trust me. You think about who was in charge in the 90s, we all know. We don't need to remind you at this point. But the fact is, under each of the last two administrations, over the last 16 years, we've raised the debt ceiling 9 times for $6.7 trillion. And interestingly, between 1998, when we balanced the budget, and 2002, we actually increased the spending on average was 5% more per year. And magically, the balanced budget disappeared. And by 2002, we had a deficit again. And you would think that that would have been a warning to us. You would have thought that perhaps we'd realize, well, we better dial it back, but no. We actually increased the discretionary spending, which basically means the stuff we don't have to do to keep up with the entitlements. But the discretionary spending increased from 2002 to 2004 by 11.2% on average for each of those years. And people say, well, we had the wars. You know, we had all that. We were fighting terrorism when we were fighting these wars, and I know there's any number of thoughts with respect to all those things, and we won't go there right now. But I'll tell you, between 2001 and 2004, when the bulk of money was being spent for those wars and for that fight on terrorism, they accounted for only 56% of the discretionary spending. Which means the amount that we were spending on things we didn't need, like the bridge to nowhere, which came along at that exact same time, and that kind of malarkey, all the earmarking, was 10 times what it was from 94 to 98. And I realize this is a lot of numbers and a lot of stuff, other than to say, why are we in the position we're in? Because we're sending people to Washington who have never worked in the private sector and have no idea how the wealth of this nation is created. And that's a problem. That is a real problem. And again, I said a moment ago, I'm married, I have 9 kids, I have 1,000 good excuses not to do this. As do other good people that go to Washington. But there's a lot of people who go to Washington with less good intention. They go there under the idea that this is a career. To me, that's ridiculous. I don't know at what point we went from becoming citizen legislators, where you give of yourself as an individual for a finite period of time for the betterment of society, and then you go back to what it is you did in the private sector. That is how this nation was intended to be, and we've gotten away from that. And people wonder why good people who are qualified don't run. How fortunate we are to be in a state where we have people like Thomas, and we have people like Rand, who actually, you think about what this little state, people love to have any number of comments at our expense, but we've sent 2 of the most fiscally responsible people, 2 of the most highly truthful people with respect to sticking to their word to Washington as exist there. They represent probably 10% of the people in Washington who are actually doing the people's bidding. And this is a state that has the opportunity to lead on that front again. A number of people have made comments to me about my speech at Fancy Farm. And it's interesting because, frankly, I was joking with Al Cross earlier. When the expectation was 0, it was hard not to exceed that. So, I don't know if that's a compliment or not. But part of what people appreciated and part of what resonated with them is the fact I had some zingers and I had some prepared lines that I was going to use. And as I stood on that stage, it was similar to what I'm doing now. And I looked out and I saw people who actually want someone to treat them like adults. Somebody that would tell them the truth, good, bad, or otherwise. Somebody who would focus on the issues. Somebody who would start to reverse the tide. It bothers me as a Republican that those of us in the Republican boat are snidely in our little rowboat rowing down the Niagara River, and the falls are ahead of us, and we can hear them, and we're starting to go faster, and we're rowing 5 times a minute, and we're snickering into our hand at those crazy Democrats over here who are rowing 10 times a minute. Look at those silly guys. They're going to go over the falls. Well, so are we. And nobody's trying to turn the boat around, and nobody's trying to get to shore. And unless we step up and stop the silly nonsense, as I said a moment ago, why do people not get in? Why do people like Thomas and Rand not more often get into these mixes? It's because of the kind of silly nonsense that you're seeing where it becomes about personal attacks. The people of Kentucky deserve better than that. We're smarter than that. And we demand that people step up and represent we the people. That's what I'm willing to do. It's what I'm trying to do. And we need people who are willing to step forward and willing to make a difference for a finite period of time. This should not be a career for anyone. I would love to sit here and take questions. Time doesn't allow that. Here's what I would ask you to do. Please, over the course of the next 9 months, I've had some fascinating conversations with people who are big supporters of my opponent. And they're supporters for a couple of reasons. The primary reason I hear is they support him because we need his power and influence. He's been there so long, we need that power and influence. It's good for Kentucky. And yet not one of these people has ever been able to tell me one example of how that power and influence has actually benefited Kentucky in the last 6, 10, 20 years. Since earmarking ended, we can't even bring home cookies that we're not paying for anymore. And that's frankly a good thing. But until we start to change the people that we send to Washington at every level, we're going to keep getting the same results. We need better than that. So what I would ask you to do, my website is just my name, mattbevin.com, mattbevin.com. Take a look at that. See where I stand on the issues. I know that even in this group, there are people that are supporters of my opponent, and some who would support me, and there's quite a number who don't know me from a hole in the ground. I understand that. I'm just asking you to please look under the hood, make an informed decision, reach out to me. You can contact me through that website. I want to earn your vote. I don't demand it, I don't expect it, I don't have that ability. But I'm asking you, and I'm thinking you're the type of people who will do it, to be informed. Take the time to make an informed decision, because we owe it to the future generations who we are saddling with debt, the likes of which they will not be able to pay unless we start to take some drastic turns. That's where I'm going to stop for now. I appreciate you having me here. Mike, I don't know where you went. Thank you. I mean, really, God bless you. Thank you for opening your backyard to us. This is terrific. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to seeing you here next year when I've got somebody different to talk about. Thank you.